Well, Rob, where do we start? There's so many things to cover since we last spoke to you about a year ago at the same place here down at the Green Yards. We're pre-season, we're just a couple of weeks away, but we were just talking before, for some people, there's been no break at all. It's 12 months of solid rugby. This surely can't go on. We can't go to the 13th month, can we?
No, I don't think so, Stuart. I think everybody has to have a serious look at that. It's just too much. Actually, with Super 6 going, and people didn't realise, people probably thought it's a good time for Super 6 for playing that level of rugby through the summer, which it probably was in terms of conditions and everything else. But that meant that nobody at a club got a break at all. And that's actually quite a lot for the vast majority who are volunteers. So, no, it has to be looked at seriously, because I always try and look ahead, look ahead 10, 15, 20 years. People just not do that. They'll just not do rugby 12 months a year.
Well, the first thing I've got to say to you is congratulations on getting that retrospective cap. Now, it's funny actually, because you've got mixed feelings on this. I know I've heard you talk about this before. Yeah. Whilst families and other people, Mark Moncrief, for instance, who played I think 6 or 7 times in uncapped internationals, was absolutely thrilled. Yeah. But there is a flip side to that, isn't there?
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't want to sound ungrateful. It just seemed a bit, just didn't seem quite right to me. A game I played in 1977. I can't hardly remember the game, Stuart. But I don't want to sound ungrateful at all. And actually, excuse me, when we were up to it was before the England game actually, the day before, the SIU did it very well, and I caught up with quite a few people I knew well, and the SIU did it very well.
Where is the cap now?
Good question. It's in my house somewhere. It's not anywhere that people will see it, but I'll probably get it framed, Stuart. As I say, I don't want to sound ungrateful. I'm not somebody who ever lives in the past. I'm actually far more interested in what I'm doing today, tomorrow, than what I did 40 odd years ago.
Very much like Jim Rennick, in fact, because I've spoken to Jim many a time, and we were talking memorabilia. He says, well, I just don't have anything. He said, I think I brought back a stuffed lion or something from Romania, because that was about all they had. Yeah. But it's memories that he said. I've got memories, and I don't really need, things effectively.
That's
but,
very true.
That's not everyone's point of view, obviously.
No, and as you said before, Stuart, it was, and it is very nice for families. And actually, saying Mark Moncrief, Mark and I had lunch after it that day and caught up with 4 or 5 of his mates that I taught, and we had a really good day out in Edinburgh. So that was good, and it is nice for families.
And at least you're on the book now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about more serious things. Super 6, as was. Yep. It is no longer. It lasted 5 years. It went through COVID, of course, which was really, really difficult. Yep. The whole thing was, there was just so many problems with it. Well-intentioned, there's no question about it, but it didn't really work out. Looking back now, what are your own thoughts? Because you were obviously heavily involved with the Southern Knights, with Melrose, and it was very divisive.
Oh yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. It's very difficult here, Stuart. And I think that was, you put it well, it was well intentioned. I think Melrose, when they called it the Southern Knights, the intention was to really make it a Borders team and a South team. But not everybody bought into that, Stuart. And I can see, I respect other clubs in the area, I can see why they didn't want their best players to come and play for the Knights, because they're thinking about like what's going to happen when they come back to us. Have they played a whole summer and then they're taking these players away from us. But it wasn't really supported anywhere. I think we tend to, the strength of the Borders can sometimes be the weakness of the Borders. We can, I've been involved in the festivals and common ridings for the last 5, been involved a long time, but I've been chairman at Melrose for the last 5 summers. Tremendous time we have, and that's one time in the Borders that all the Border people get together when they actually support each other at a festival and common riding. There's nothing divisive about them, but we tend to, other times with sport or rugby, we just tend to look at ourselves and just think, oh, how's that going to affect us? I think the problem now for me looking forward is the pathway for players. That is the problem. There is a huge gulf between the club game and the pro game. Everybody sees that. There was a big, I think what everybody I think should acknowledge is the quality of rugby in Super 6 got better every year. In my view, anyway, I thought the games were more physical. They were more intense. They were up a level. I would argue that with anybody. So, will the Premiership be the same? I'm not sure. We'll just have to wait and see. But the Premiership and everybody will have to try and make sure that level of rugby is real quality, because you want it to be a stepping stone for young players. Otherwise, all we'll do is we'll complain that Edinburgh and Glasgow sign another South African, another New Zealander. Nobody wants that. Nothing against these guys, because they can add to what Edinburgh and Glasgow have. But we need to bring our own boys through. I will hammer this every time. There is a lot of talent in Scotland, but it doesn't come through as it should.
And of course, one fact which backs that up is the fact that the last big-time player to come out of Melrose was probably, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly Brown?
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
I've got around for this 2 or 3 times, because I've said that, and we've had other players who've come here, like say a Ross McCann, a Rory Darge, that I've got capped.
Jamie Batty,
yeah, good players, and they were good for Melrose, good for the club, and they're welcomed here. But they didn't come through our catchment area. So you're right. Kelly Brown was the last. Even at the weekend, I was at Glasgow Sevens, and I watched the under 16s and under 18s, and I tell you, the quality. There were some good players playing from every town there, but for some reason it gets stuck. And Super 6, the reason for Super 6 was to try and accelerate that development. So it's a shame, but all over Scotland it wasn't supported. You would go to watch Watsonians and Herries. There was nobody there either. So it wasn't just people just nobody supported the Southern Knights. Maybe apart from Ayr, the crowds were poor.
And that was a concern. And
Yep.
One of the reasons I think for that, and I've been mentioning this a lot, is the fact that everything was available, ready to watch live from the comfort of your own home. Now, at a semi-pro level, you need people through the gates. You've got bills to pay,
Absolutely.
and you're not going to do that if you make it easy for people to stay at home.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, Stuart. I mean, that is and that's a problem for rugby in general now. Once it gets to the middle of winter, what are people going to do on a Saturday afternoon? They can watch English Premiership rugby on Sky. Or Premier Sports or whatever when it's on now. You can watch Top 14 in France. You can watch that, or you can come down and watch Melrose, Gala, Selkirk, whatever. So, no, it's not easy.
I've always said as well, putting the Borders Rugby TV hat on, that we will never do a live television broadcast for various reasons. One of them is that what we want effectively is to get people through the gates, and by showing quality highlights packages and showcasing players, like for instance the young Edinburgh Accies player from a couple of weeks ago, the Sevens, who burst onto the scene as a 17-year-old, and people like that, so that people see that, and then they say, oh, I've got to go down and see them, and get people in there. And I think that's got to be the best way of doing it, making people want to see live rugby.
Absolutely, Stuart. I'll thank you on this just now, because Borders Rugby TV do a great job, because there is less and less exposure, there's less and less anything out there on rugby or on other sports, and you could ask who buys a paper now, right? People just don't do that, whereas 20, 30 years ago you bought the Southern Reporter or the Border Telegraph and you read about your sport. Most younger people will never do that. They don't know what a paper is. So what you do, and people they want short, snappy stuff, don't they? And you give that. So well done, Borders Rugby TV.
Well, thank you very much. And of course, the Offside Line covers the online side of it as well. So I think between us, we do our best anyway to promote the sport, and that's what it's all about. But going back to the Southern Knights specifically, and a point that you mentioned about the politics of it, if you like. I know that the Southern Knights and Melrose wanted desperately to make it a Borders side. It was always a Melrose franchise. You could never get round that. But the politics of it is always difficult. We didn't only see it at Southern Knights. We saw it at the Border Reivers as well. The only thing which seemed to work here, and you mentioned the common riding, was the South of Scotland team, where everyone felt that it was their team. Yeah. And the South, of course, has come back in the last couple of years, and hopefully the Inter-District is here to stay as well. But, if we're looking for a harmonious team, the South of Scotland seems to be it. Not necessarily to go onto another Super Six in the future, but just to get people aspiring, the ones who maybe don't want to go into professional rugby, they've got something at the end of it that they can really aim for.
Yeah, no, sure. The people my age and older will remember when pro rugby came in at first in 1997. So you had the South team then. I can't even remember what we called it then. We might have called it Border Reivers then. We're sure a few changed the names. But in that first year of professionalism, or actually the second year of professionalism, because the first year all the pro players trained in Edinburgh. So you did like 60 professional players, and they all trained there 3 days a week, and then they come back to their clubs. But the next again year, we, in terms of the Borders anyway, were well supported. We played Bath, Brive and Pontypridd in the European Cup as it was then. That was when Pontypridd and Brive played, and I'm not sure if it was the final, but that was when there was a big hassle across in France. There was a nightclub after the game. It was crazy anyway. It was called the Battle of Brive or something. It was a crazy one. The reason I'm bringing that up was we played Pontypridd at Kelso, Bath at Hawick and Brive at Gala. Now there would be 4,000 or 5,000 at each of these 3 games. The only problem with that was that at the end of that season they cut that team, and then they merged with Edinburgh. And Glasgow went to with Caledonia, and I think that was almost the nail in the coffin, if you want, for the Border Reivers or the professional team. It doesn't make any sense to not support the Border Reivers but support the South, because it's the same thing. And I think there are good people in every club, Stuart. There are good people in every club in Scotland, never mind the Borders, and they have got to promote the South or whatever it is for your better players to get a chance to play at a higher level. You can't keep them. People hark back to you and I were talking about Jim Rennick. The days of Jim Rennick playing for Hawick and then playing for Scotland, these days are gone. I mean, nobody's going to play for, no disrespect to Hawick, nobody's going to play for Hawick one Saturday and Scotland the next. That's just gone. So, but that has got to be fitted in the calendar, not squeezed in somewhere or players not getting a break or not getting a rest. So no, if that happens, great, because it should.
And I think also as well another factor was the fact that the South of Scotland played around the grounds. 1 minute they're at Riverside, then they're at Poynter. In professional rugby like Border Reivers, you had to have a base for all sorts of logistical reasons. But again, that was a big factor, I think, to the people of the Borders.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to look at. I think from a player's point of view, that's quite difficult, because then you've not got a home ground, and everybody makes a big thing in any sport about home advantage. So it's not really an advantage you play in different grounds. But if that works, fair enough. And it maybe gets, if it's a game at Kelso, they get the bar profits. A game at Selkirk, they get it. And it maybe gives them more unity to the South. If it does, fair enough, Stuart. Good.
You mentioned about the fact that we've got this gulf, and even more of a gulf now that Super 6 isn't there. The argument is that the Premiership could actually be strengthened because there's, for instance, if we're led to believe what we read, then Ayrshire Bulls, there's a lot of Ayrshire Bulls who are going to be playing for the Ayr side this season, and Heriots as well have recruited very well. Yep. We will see in the first 5 or 6 weeks if that does materialise, but certainly that's where the talk is at the moment. But presumably there is a way of getting to professional through the Premiership if the standard continues to increase. But how much does it have to increase?
Yeah, I think it's got to increase a bit. And I think the only problem I had with Super 6 was that it was semi-pro or part-time pro. So right away, It's like somebody saying they're a part-time joiner or a semi-professional joiner. How does that compare to a full-time joiner? It doesn't work. To be professional, you've got to be putting that time and effort in. That's kind of obvious. We've just all watched the Olympics, some great stuff, but the time and effort, and they all thank the National Lottery.
Yeah.
Because of the time that they were afforded they had to give up their jobs, and that's your problem. For me, the problem in the next 2-3 years with the Premiership is, I think it'll be divisive. There's got to be 2 or 3 clubs up there. I don't know where they're getting the money, Stuart.
I was going to say, because we've already seen the well-publicised 10 million in debt.
Yep.
There's only so much money to go around, and certainly there's no investment to the level that it needs to be in the Premiership from the governing body at this time.
No, and I don't think I'm talking out of turn. I think the SAE are forecasting a 10 million deficit this year coming up as well. So, and that was 10 million last year. So no, there's not going to be money there. And it's certainly, they will not be giving money to Premiership clubs to pay players. And they're quite right, they shouldn't. So that's a very difficult one. You're probably going back 30 years probably now for you're expecting somebody to do their weights at 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning, then go out and do their job, because that's what they did then. But I'm not sure that'll happen, Stuart. So it'll not be easy for Premiership clubs or any clubs to really get that standard. Because and it should happen. You watch the top level rugby for me now. It's fantastic to watch. It gets better and better. The quality, and it should, because players are doing it. That's their job. They're doing it every day. So for me, that gulf gets bigger and bigger.
And the Premiership, it's a big reset, of course, this year. Yeah. We've seen Melrose and Boroughmuir and Watsonians getting promoted to a higher level. Ayr, of course, won their promotion naturally. And, of course, you've got Heriots there's your 6 teams have been infiltrated into the setup. So it's going to be a difficult year and a very exciting year at the same time. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. From a Melrose perspective, because obviously we're here now, you're the director of rugby, coming off the back of Southern Knights, which divided the club. Getting everyone back on side again, that must be a headache.
It shouldn't be. I tend to be hopefully a glass half full sort of person. So for me, it should be easy now, because there was quite a lot of people who were negative towards the Southern Knights here. Well, that's gone. So get behind Melrose now. If your heart is in Melrose, then you get behind Melrose and support them, because we are working. We'll work as hard as we've ever done, from the grassroots right up, to make this club as good as it can be. We'll not be sitting back. It'll not be easy. The next 2-3 years for us, I can see, will be pretty difficult. That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing for Melrose to do. We need our players. We'll bring in 2-3 players, but we need our players to step up. We've got some great boys here, great players. That the club means a lot to them. But I think, in fairness, the last couple of seasons we've not been as consistent as we should have been. We've been there and thereabouts. 2 seasons ago, when Kelsey got promoted, we were pretty close then. Last year we fell away near the end of the season, but we were there for a good chunk of the season as well. So we just need to step up a notch, and hopefully 1 or 2 players coming in can help us a bit, and we'll see where we go. But I didn't laugh, but when with Super 6, it was as if we had no friends. Because the people in Melrose didn't like it being called the Southern Knights, and everybody else thought it was Melrose. So
where do you go?
We're a lose-lose. So now...
Did you expect that when it all started?
Not really. I was, and I'm not... I would have probably done the same. I wasn't really involved when the name of Southern Knights was suggested, but it was very well intentioned. It was basically not wanting, I think, to call it Melrose and bring in players from everybody else. Let's call it the Southern Knights and make it that. Quite simple, really. But no, it wasn't. It wasn't supported by the people here, and it wasn't supported by the vast majority of people on the borders either.
So it's the Premiership now, the new look Premiership, 12 teams, 3 going down. We have 4 border clubs in there as well. there could well be a big scrap at the end of the season. Let's hope we're fighting all the clubs at the top end, but there are no guarantees in this one, and you've got to win your home games, and you've just got to go out. It's going to be a big fight.
It is. No, we'll shoot, and it'll be a long season. You know, you're talking about, and we were talking about before we come on as well, about, you know, 2-3 weeks into the season already. I think clubs are getting too excited about playing pre-season games, to be fair. They're going to have 22 league games without playing other border league games and anything else.
And then don't mention the playoffs afterwards.
Exactly, Stuart. And, you know, the games will be cancelled, so, you know, there's it's going to be a long season and a tough season, but again, it's the same for everybody. But you've mentioned a couple of clubs in there. I think Ayr and Heriots are two, not quite sure because you hear a lot of rumours, but Ayr and Heriots will be strong, the squads will be strong. And that's what we've tried to look at, is because especially some of our young players, we're speaking to them saying, look, you know, especially props. We've got a few good young props, but they are very young. You know, they're 19, 20. And we can't expect them to play Premiership week in, week out. Now, it's quite hard for them to see that, but we're just being honest about that. You know, I think it's not safe for a start. So we've got to look after them and we want to develop them properly. But there'll be a long haul this season, Stuart.
We're only 2 weeks away, well, less than 2 weeks away from it now, and you don't have like a Border League match as well, competitive match. You presumably got a game next week, I think. But then it's you know, you've got Heriots down here full on. Heriots, one of the teams we just mentioned, are going to be pretty strong, we would think. So there's a great story there as well. Melrose coming up, Heriots, who've never been down. You know, it's just a recipe for people to flock into the green yards and watch it. And I know it's our live radio commentary game as well, but we'll also have people at Millbrae for the Ayr Curry, which is going to be an absolute cracker. We got someone at Edinburgh against Hoyk as well, and also Kelso against Watsonian. So, you know, we're doing our bit to promote it, obviously, because we think this is going to be a really good product, which you know, you just set the blue torch paper on it and it's going to explode.
Well, I think so. Yeah, no, we're looking forward to obviously Heriots always play rugby. They're a strong outfit. So that is it's a tough one for us. But look, every game will be tough right through. And I think with 3 teams going down, there's not going to be many meaningless games, Stuart, as the season goes on. I always think that one up, and we found that in National 1, only one side being promoted makes it very difficult. I personally think there should be 2, you know, but 3 is quite a lot to get relegated. So, we're looking forward to it. We play Alnwick this Saturday, and first and seconds play Alnwick, and we had a hit out against Musselburgh last week. We had the 2 Sevens tournaments, Peebles and Gala, and we thought that's enough, you know. I think that if we're a bit undercooked early on, well, you know, somebody can blame me or whatever else, but it is a long season. You know, I don't know how many, is it 14 or 15 games in the bounce before there's a break with international Saturday or something like that. It's a lot for club players. So
we will see. And it's interesting as well because you're playing Alnwick, a team from England. And I know, talking to you before many times, you've always subscribed to the fact that you've got to go outside the borders to get, and outside Scotland, to get outside your comfort zone, find out what other teams have got to offer. So a game against Alnwick is actually pretty useful.
No, I think so for us. And Alnwick, we've got a tie-in with them. Andrew Hodgson's a good friend of ours. He's at Alnwick, and he was a St Mary's boy.
Good friend of ours as well.
Yeah, no, he's a good friend of a lot of people, is Andrew. And so we played them last year. We went down there, so we were keen for that to continue. We'll play for a cup with them as well. So, and they're a bit different, as you say. They'll be, and it's maybe what we need before we play Heriots, because there'll be a big physical group of guys.
We're only, as I say, less than 2 weeks away from the start now. What can you tell us in terms of people who are going to be signed up for Melrose for this coming season?
Yeah, I'll not say too much of the players who come in because everybody will see that. But we had to look at a couple of props. So that's coming in for us, because as I said, we've got some good props, but they're young guys. Jack Dobie obviously comes to us from the Knights, but he's a Melrose boy. Angus Runciman was playing for the Knights latterly as well. So we expect big things for these guys, because what we need is a good platform. We tend to play good rugby. We scored more tries, bonus points than any other team in National 1 last year, probably the same year before. And teams know that Melrose will play rugby, but we need to have a platform, and we know the Premiership's a step up from National 1. So, we can talk about whatever we want rugby-wise, but unless we've got a pack, we'll struggle. So that's important for us. But I think we're pretty solid up front. With the young guy Dylan Coburn was involved in the Scotland under-20s, Thomas Bryan. We've got other guys in there, so I think we'll be okay up front, and we've got some exciting players behind.
Zen Zavarczyk, is he going to be coming to Melrose?
Looks as though he is. Yep. He was obviously playing for the Knights. Now that is, you can speak to him about that. He's certainly not coming here for money. And people not believe me, but if people know me, will know I don't say one thing and mean another, whatever else. So he just wants to come here and play rugby. He enjoyed playing for the Knights here, and he quite enjoyed the coaching here. So it's his choice. But we did not, try and troll in the Super Six players. People can see that. We said to boys, look, you're welcome to play here. We're not pushing you away. But the players from other clubs have gone back to their clubs. Gone back to Jed or Kelso. That's fine. So we tend to be criticised quite a lot, Stuart, but I think everybody should look at their own club first before they start criticising us.
It is certainly a talking point, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we've seen it all over the park, that's for sure.
Correct.
Now, going back to Zen again, Polish international, of course, really getting that experience. And I've heard rumours that Poland, as such, are putting a few rules in place that they have to play part of the season in Poland. Is that correct? Or?
I'm not sure. Part of the thing with Zen is that Craig Greer is coaching our forwards here this year, and he's obviously Polish international. So there's the tie-in. I think that's more the reason for Zen being here, being comfortable with Craig and knowing him well. But our philosophy is the same. He plays for Poland. Any of our players, we were absolutely delighted that Aidan Cross got a contract at Glasgow. We worked really hard to help him get that. So we could have tried to say to Aidan, come on Aidan, you just play for Melrose. Aidan played well in Super 6, deserved a chance, and luckily he's got a contract with Glasgow. Now, that's not going to happen to too many. If I try and be true to my word and put on the rugby hat, that's a good thing for him. He would have been great playing for us. He would have made a huge difference to play for Melrose in the Premiership. But Aidan's played a couple of years of Super 6. He's done well, so let's give him a chance.
The apprenticeship has been done.
Yeah, exactly.
And he is a very good player, isn't he? What about his roots?
Yeah, well, he's an interesting one. We wouldn't jump up and down if he gets a cap and says from Melrose, because he's Stuart's Melville boy. But he came here because Christian Townsend, Gregor's older boy, he went to Stuart's, I'm trying to think of ESMS, I still call it Stuart's Melville. So he went to school there for his last year, Christian did, and what he did was he brought Aidan down the next again season. He brought him down for pre-season. He says Aidan was looking play for a club. So Aidan actually during COVID, his folks put him in a cottage in Gattonside so he could train here during COVID. He has worked really, really hard, and I think in a struggling Super 16 for the Knights, a lot of the time he knuckled down really well, and I think he's got a bit of a wow factor. When he gets the ball in his hands, you think, right, something's going to happen. And people would say, oh, well, maybe his defence wasn't as good. Well, I think something like Alan Tate, Bruce Ruthven, Alan Tate, they helped his defence. So I think that's come on. And he's worked extremely hard to get a chance. And I just hope I think Glasgow will be a good environment for him.
And we certainly look forward to watching him progress. And the other boys you mentioned, Ross McCann and stuff, who have all come to Melrose for a while, and obviously it's helped their rugby develop. And we just saw a little clip from Edinburgh Rugby recently about Ross coming back here and saying that some of his best memories are here. So you certainly have got a reputation for looking after your players. There's no question about that.
We've got to keep doing that as well. Sometimes it irks you a bit. Like, people think that Melrose trawling players. Like, we've got a good number of players playing for Edinburgh clubs because they're at university in Edinburgh, whatever. And all the border clubs are the same. It's very difficult when there's not a lot of employment here. The natural thing for young people is to go to university, and it's got to be Edinburgh, Glasgow is the closest for you. And it's quite a lot for them. Luke Townsend's coming to play for us this year, back to play for us. He's a Melrose boy. His dad will know, like us saying he's a Melrose boy, but he is. So we're really pleased to welcome him back, because he'll be really good for us. But that's quite hard for him. It'd be easy for him to stay in Edinburgh. But and that's my job really, is to make sure, if I was coaching Melrose just now, hopefully I'd have the same philosophy. But it's harder when you're the coach. Somebody like me can try and just take a step back and think, what is the best thing for Luke Townsend, Aidan Cross, and hopefully we will never, and I mean never, hold somebody back here. Never. Clubs are delighted when they get an internationalist. Yeah, well, nowadays they have to move on from here before they get to be an internationalist. So.
Let's talk about the under-16s and the under-18s in particular. It's an area I follow a lot. We get some great footage of stars of the future, and we've seen recently the likes of Peebles doing particularly well. Great to see Jed Thistle, who went through a bad patch. They won the under-16s title at Peebles. So, it all comes in fits and troughs, and you have good seasons, you have bad seasons. But I always look for Melrose Wasps and at that level, and they don't seem to be as competitive. Why is that, do you think?
Yeah, no, that bothers us as well. But there will be. This year, our under-18s will be better than they were last year. But I will take my hat off to last year's group. They really struggled. It could be a whole lot of reasons for that. People always bring out the COVID card and said that group missed a lot. But the group we had last year had a really tough season. But the coaches, Nick Alston, Kev Brown, James
First-class
Roy,
people.
Tremendous. Absolutely tremendous with these bunch of boys. Other clubs would have given up last year. The players would have given up, and the coaches. Now, our guys didn't. No, we'll be better this year, under 18. Our under 16s will be okay. And if you look at us below that, the next crop are pretty consistent the next few years. And our job's not just to win Gala Sevens, Peebles Sevens. We want more and more boys playing the game. So our coaches might not win something because they're going to give more people a game. That's what it's about for us. We're not just going to play our best 15 and ignore the others. We're going to look after them well. So we set up an academy. People say, well, that's not new. We never said it was new. But we want to try and give these boys more support, because we've maybe had 3 or 4 our better players are playing for private schools in Edinburgh. Some of that is because it's to play good rugby. So what I want to say to somebody is, it might cost you whatever it is, £250 to be in the Melrose Rugby Academy for a year, but it's going to cost you to board at somewhere like Merchison's going to cost you 41,500.
Yes, it's a big difference there.
and we can't have that. I'm not trying to criticise Merchiston, because I was there for 3 years. So we'll struggle to get that level of rugby consistently for players. But we can certainly give them more than maybe we've done in the past. And that's not a criticism of the past. But it's somewhere like Merchiston or Stuart Cameron or George Watson's. They'll be doing 3 condition sessions a week, and they'll be in the gym at 6:30, 7 in the morning. So we've got to try and do something similar here. Otherwise, that's why players are maybe not coming through. So,
And of course you have Earlston High School, which is a superb school, great history, of course. Kelly Brown was there, Chalmers, a lot of people, and Melrose Primary School just a stone's throw away.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was looking at the Sports Day trophy, and the names on there. Mark Robertson's on there. Mac Brown, the Hasties. There's a who's who of rugby on that trophy engraved. So again, you've got just round the corner over there, Melrose Primary, who will no doubt have plenty of talented youngsters coming through.
Yeah, no, we have, and we hopefully have got a close tie-in with Earlston High School. Ross Patterson, who's the head of PE there, Mark Naismith. These guys do a really good job at the school, and we try and support them as much as we can, work very closely with them. Sam Derrick goes in and does quite a lot of the School of Rugby in the school, so Ian Chisholm's obviously head of youth rugby. So we've got a close tie in with Earlston High School. A new headmaster there, I've met him twice, I really like him. I think he'll be really good for the school. And I'm trying to say to him, we need support from him as well. We're trying to do a lot for the players at the school, because Melrose is it's quite hard for people in Melrose to realise that Melrose is actually Lauder, Earlston, Newtown, St Boswell's, Melrose. That's the catchment area, Earlston High School. So, and I'm guessing it maybe 1,000 pupils in the school. That's a fair size of school. So we've no excuse. We smaller towns on the borders, it's really harder than it is for us because small catchment, really small numbers. But I think with the size of Earlston High School, it's not your Stirlings in Ayr. I don't know how many high schools you're talking about in their area. It'll be quite a few. We're talking about one, but at least it's a fair number.
Melrose Sevens, then, of course. Let's start, or let's end with the jewel in the crown as far as the club is concerned. It's a tournament that goes back to 1883, the history well documented, of course. And there's going to be a change this season. You've gone away from your traditional second week in April, and it's going to be the climax to the Kings of the Sevens, which has raised a few eyebrows, obviously. However, and I know you've had a lot of support from the likes of Ewan Swinton from Gala, who was waxing lyrical about the fact that Melrose is trying to get it more club friendly, more borders friendly, and for a climax to the Kings of the Sevens, that's pretty essential to get the balance right, isn't it?
It is, and it's not an easy one, that, Stuart, as well. I'm not trying to fudge an issue there or try and divert anything there either. I think going to the date, I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago it was suggested you maybe move the date. Now I'm maybe more a traditionalist than some people, and I thought no, Melrose Sevens, second Saturday in April, sacrosanct.
But it's not sacrosanct anymore.
No, it's not, Stuart, and everybody realises there's a lot going on in the second Saturday in April. We talk about Super 6. The last couple of seasons we've had, the Southern Knights have had games on Melrose Sports Day.
Phil Morris, the tournament director, was pulling his hair out over that one.
Yeah, well, that's a difficult one. You can see that as well. Like Melrose get criticised for a lot of things. They've tried their best over a good number of years to keep Melrose Sevens up there as an event. Now they've not got it all right, and I'll take as much blame as anybody else. Like Phil Morris gets criticised. It shouldn't be Phil Morris. It's Melrose Rugby Club. It's not Phil Morris. So people should criticise me, not Phil. So, but we've definitely, as well as changing the date, which I think had to happen, and the reason it's gone to when it is in May is to not try and mess up anybody else's date, because other clubs have had to move their date in the last few years, so it was simple for us to just tag at the end, but that still doesn't please some people. So I think in a lot of ways it makes sense for Melrose to be the last tournament. If you look at it from a rugby point of view as well, the second Saturday in April is a bit of a crazy time to play sevens because nobody can prepare for it. They're playing 15s. And I looked at the sevens last year, virtually every tournament as it would be, the sevens got better and better. So if you've seen the qualities, as it got on and on, it got better, the quality of every club. So it makes a lot of sense for Melrose Sevens to be when it is, and it's going to be far more club-based. So people will not be saying, "Oh, what's this team? They're called such and such," or just a bunch of guys that are.
And that was one of the big issues last year in particular. It just seemed to be overkill on the guest sides. You know, there were some, I mean, the Eric Liddell team or whatever, nobody really knew. Obviously, we knew about Eric Liddell and the connection with Melrose, etc. But, you know, it was kind of like, well, who is this on the paper? And who is that team? We've never heard of them. They'd much rather, if it is going to be guest teams, they'd like to see sort of a familiar way, like a Rosslyn Park or a Saracens or something like that, or at least a club representing that rather than a kind of put together guest side.
And we respect that, and the club have taken that on board, and that's what it'll be. There might be like Shogun or maybe
to defend the trophy.
Defend the trophy. But I think you'll find it'll be club-based. And what we'll try and do, because I think people need to look at as well that let's try and get good players. I'm not saying the players who don't play here are good players, but some pro players they hardly get a chance to play sevens. So it might be Edinburgh and Glasgow players or fringe players or real academy players. Like they could be 18, 19-year-old boys that have never played sevens, for goodness sake. They can play here in front of a big crowd in a good quality tournament. Most people want to do that. So, but they maybe could play for their club. You know, if it's a Hawick player, a Gala player, and he's moved on, he can come back and play for Gala Hawick. So that should add to the tournament. You know, Gala would be stronger, Hawick would be stronger, whichever club it is. So, no, we get criticised all the time. But what I would say again is people look at themselves. As long as I'm around this place, we will support everybody else's sevens as well. And as we've always tried to do, and we'll try and work hard at our sevens. Our players, I don't know if it's because of the history here, but we take the sevens seriously, playing-wise. We don't just turn up at tournaments or whatever else. We try and prepare as well as we can, and we try and play good rugby, play good sevens, and we'll keep doing that. So, and we'll try and support everybody else's tournament as well. So everybody wants to have a bit look at themselves first and then criticise Melrose.
Well, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Rob. You always, shoot straight from the hip, and that's what we like. We like straight talking here. Always a pleasure, as I say, to meet up with you. And the very best of luck for the season ahead.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Stuart.